Thank you for your time this afternoon. So, apart from looking for a life partner, looking for a job is one of the most important decisions that you'll make in your life. So, think about the amount of time that you actually spend at work, every week, every month, every year, and throughout the years. It's an incredibly large portion of your life, incredibly important because it affects your happiness, it affects your health and your well-being. And yet, there's a lot of people out there who haven't actually found their dream job. And when you look at some of the research around that, it's quite extraordinary. So 70% of the workforce is actually not engaged at work. 2 in 5 people are daydreaming about leaving their current job every month. I mean, that's just absolutely extraordinary. So with such an important life decision, why is it that people aren't reaching their goal of finding their dream job? So just as a show of hands, who likes looking for a new job? I see nobody. Great. So basically, looking for a job is incredibly stressful. So recent research actually found that aside from the death of a loved one and going through a divorce or breakup, looking for a job was the third most stressful thing to do. More stressful than moving, more stressful than planning a wedding, more stressful than getting a root canal, even more stressful than public speaking. I mean, like right now, I would rather be doing this than looking for a new job, that's for sure. So the whole process of recruitment is essentially fundamentally broken. Applying for jobs is really, really messy. It's messy from both the candidate side as well as the company side. So from the candidate side, there's obviously like job boards, there's like recruitment agencies that you can engage with. But a lot of the time, I think people spend a lot of effort and energy sending out their CV to lots of different job posts, lots of different recruiters. And sometimes it kind of feels like you're essentially kind of throwing your CV into a black hole and hoping for the best. From the company side, it's actually not really that much better because you're essentially always kind of inundated with a lot of different kind of CVs from different channels. You're getting pressure from top executives about hiring better talent and more efficiently, particularly for fast-growing companies. And yet, they continue to do and use the same channels over and over again and expect different results. And that kind of reminds me of this. So basically, that's kind of how Hired came about. So the founders of Hired were all very successful serial entrepreneurs, and they got together and they talked about what has been the biggest challenge for each of them in trying to scale their companies. Everyone said hiring really great talent to build their businesses. So what they decided to do is create a company that solves the problem for absolutely everyone, and that happened in 2012. And then they started to ask themselves some questions. So first one, so what if we looked at traditional recruitment? And traditionally, it's always been, recruitment has always involved candidates applying to companies. So what would actually happen if you took that model and flipped it upside down? So instead of candidates applying for companies, what if you actually made companies apply to candidates? So the second thing that they asked is, so there's an incredible lack of transparency in the recruitment process, and that leads to an incredible amount of inefficiencies. So what if employers were actually required to give you upfront compensation information when asking you to interview with them? And that's another component of Hired that we've incorporated into the platform. So firstly, companies have to apply to candidates, and when they apply to candidates and send them an interview request, they have to give upfront compensation, indicative compensation information as well. So the third thing that they asked was, so what if candidates actually had a career counselor / career advisor helping them along the entire process? And a lot of times, you know, you have recruiters and other people who are very directly kind of financially incentivized to put you into a job that you either may or may not like. So having someone who is completely objective, who's able to kind of be there when you need them and push you through the process of interviewing and assessing different companies, you know, that of course is incredibly valuable for you as a candidate. And lastly, what if you were actually rewarded for getting a job? I mean, it's quite an achievement. You've gone through this kind of like sometimes a stressful exercise, and you know, getting a job is obviously like incredibly. It's an amazing feeling. You're really, really excited. So shouldn't you be rewarded for that? And that's exactly what happens when you get hired on the Hired platform. So if you get hired in Singapore, we actually give you a Sonos Play 1 Wi-Fi speaker. I actually have 2 at home. They're amazing. So basically, I just want to talk really briefly about what a good profile looks like when you're presenting yourself as a software engineer to employers. So in my personal experience, what I've actually seen be really, really successful is candidates who tell a story. So you always kind of hear about like people in marketing and brands being very successful about engaging their audience and getting people interested by telling a story. A CV, a Hired profile, it's exactly the same thing. When you tell a story about yourself, it gets people engaged, it gets people interested. So the profiles that really get a lot of people's attention are really ones that kind of talk about, you know, what got you into software engineering, what are you passionate about, why do you do this for a living, what do you do in your spare time that's related to what you do at work. Outlining those things will get you very, very far in making yourself stand out amongst a lot of other potential candidates for the same role. The other thing that is incredibly important is to really kind of flush out all the other things that you do outside of your day-to-day job. That could include, you know, open source contribution, you know, your activity on GitHub, your activity on Stack Overflow, and other different channels. Side projects is something that you should always present. In terms of, you know, what you're tinkering with, because it helps employers really understand how you think and also what you're really interested in as well. So who's hiring? Excuse me. So short answer, pretty much everybody. So in the context of Singapore, there are so many companies right now that are hiring for software engineers. Those include obviously like the success stories here in Singapore. You know, Carousel, Garena, Sephora Digital. But there is also a really long list of incredible fast-growing tech companies here. And they're across many, many different industries. They're in fintech, they're in AI, they're in SaaS, they're in autonomous cars, healthcare, travel. There's so much opportunities out there for software engineers right now that it's really up to candidates to decide what field that they're interested in and what kind of roles and responsibilities that they would actually like to take on in their next role. And also there's incredibly large kind of public companies that are hiring quite substantial software engineering teams in Singapore as well. Key example, you probably know that a lot of the big financial services companies are creating innovation centers and innovation labs here in Singapore. So there's just an incredible list of companies who are hiring for engineers, and it just continues to grow. And for those of you who are engineers from outside of Singapore and are potentially open to relocating here, again, fantastic opportunities, and a lot of the companies here in Singapore are open to relocating candidates from elsewhere, and the visa process here is very, very straightforward. So, just a quick overview on what we've seen at Hired. So this is the average salary in Singapore broken down by the years of experience of software engineers with JavaScript experience here in Singapore. So in some markets, what you'll find is that salaries start off very high, straight out of university or straight out of school, and then they plateau very quickly. In Singapore, it's a little bit different. So in Singapore, the salary actually grows quite quickly as you gain experience, and at the very senior levels, it actually gets to quite high numbers. So lastly, I just want to say a quick thanks to the organizers for the JSConf this year. We're great supporters of the JS community as well as other tech communities at Hired, and we look forward to hopefully helping many of you folks out there at some point in the future find your next dream job. Thank you very much.